The sound of dripping water echoed through the damp cave, each drop a reminder of the secrets hidden within. Glenn, a seasoned park ranger with the weight of years on his shoulders, maneuvered through the narrow corridors of the Ozark cave. The faint glow of his flashlight illuminated the jagged rocks, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Glenn had traversed these dark passages countless times, but today felt different, charged with an energy he couldn't quite place. As he pressed deeper into the cave, the smell of damp earth and limestone enveloped him, familiar yet foreign. The sound of his boots crunching on loose gravel echoed in the stillness, a reminder of his solitude in this subterranean world. He paused for a moment, taking in the silence the way it wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. This cave was a sanctuary, a place of reflection, where the outside world seemed to vanish. It was then that he noticed it, a glimmering object barely visible in the beam of his flashlight. His heart quickened as he moved closer, curiosity peaking in his chest. There, partially buried under layers of dirt and time, was a rusted metal chest. It jutted out of the ground like a forgotten relic, waiting for someone to uncover its mysteries. Glenn knelt before it, brushing away the debris with trembling fingers, feeling the cool metal against his skin. The lock was aged, but not too far gone. With a steady hand, Glenn picked up a sturdy rock. He hesitated for just a moment, a fleeting thought passing through his mind. What lay inside? Secrets. Memories. The crack of the rock striking the padlock echoed like a thunderclap in the silence of the cave. It felt surreal, the reverberation mingling with the soft sound of dripping water. Holding his breath, he listened for a moment, before feeling the satisfying click of the lock releasing. Glenn lifted the lid, revealing a trove of forgotten memories, old audio tapes, a portable recorder, and notebooks filled with the careful script of someone long gone. His eyes widened as he rummaged through the contents, the air thick with the weight of the past. As he pulled out one of the tapes, a label caught his attention. His breath caught in his throat. It bore the name of his mentor, the man who had taught him everything he knew. A man who had once seemed unshakable, but who had vanished from the community without a trace. Instinctively, Glenn pressed play on the recorder nestled among the items. The voice that came through was weary and familiar, resonating within him as he leaned closer. The old ranger spoke of mistakes and regrets, his words painting a vivid picture of a poorly planned, controlled burn that had nearly cost a small town its life. This was no ordinary day. It was a moment that threatened to unravel everything Glenn had built. In that instant, a chill ran down his spine. The faintest hint of a warning echoed in his mind. The stubborn boy who will one day have to choose between the truth and his career. The cave, once a place of solace, transformed into a chamber of reckoning, filled with echoes of the past and the weight of choices yet to be made. Would he have the courage to face the truth, or would he seal the chest once more, leaving the ghosts of yesterday to haunt only him? Glenn had always prided himself on being a protector of the land, a guardian of the secrets that nature held. His days were filled with the comforting rhythm of the forest, the chirping of birds, the rustling of wind through the trees, and the distant sound of the river. He enjoyed his routine, waking up before dawn, brewing a strong cup of coffee, and heading out in his old pickup truck, the radio crackling softly with country tunes that spoke to the heart of rural America. Each note seemed to weave through the landscape, capturing the essence of a simpler time, a time when life was less complicated. At 52, he felt the aches in his bones, but also a sense of fulfillment. He had dedicated his life to preserving the beauty of the Ozarks, to teaching the next generation of rangers the importance of stewardship. His mornings were spent inspecting trails, checking for fallen branches, and ensuring that the delicate balance of nature was maintained. The sun would rise over the mountains, casting a golden hue over the landscape, a reminder of the beauty he worked to protect. But today was different. Today he was on a routine inspection of a cave that had seen little traffic over the years. It was a place steeped in mystery, where shadows danced on the walls and every corner felt alive with stories waiting to be uncovered. He remembered the tales of his predecessor, the ranger whose voice now echoed in his memories, each story imparting a lesson, some of which Glenn had learned the hard way. He carried a single item with him on every expedition, a vintage compass that belonged to his mentor. It was a reminder of guidance, of the path he had taken and the choices he had made. The compass had weathered the years alongside him, its surface scratched and worn, but its needle still pointed true. As he navigated the dark, winding passages of the cave, he encountered small creatures scurrying away from the light, and the musty smell of damp earth filled his senses. The cave felt both familiar and foreign, as if it were holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. As Glenn pressed deeper into the cave, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, not by a creature lurking in the shadows, but by the memories of his past. The stories of his mentor, the ranger who had first introduced him to this world of wonder, played like a film in his mind. Glenn remembered the day he had met him, a brisk autumn morning, the leaves painted in vibrant shades of orange and red. He had been a fresh-faced recruit, wide-eyed and eager, ready to make his mark in the world of conservation. His mentor, a rugged man with a weathered face and a voice like gravel, had taken him under his wing. Their shared adventures had been filled with laughter and lessons, climbing steep hillsides and tracking wildlife, but they also had a darker side. Glenn recalled the warnings about mistakes made in haste, of decisions that could have dire consequences. He often thought back to a controlled burn that had gone awry, leaving the community in turmoil. His mentor had been blamed, and without a word, he had vanished from Glenn's life, leaving behind a void that never quite filled. It was a loss that Glenn had never fully processed, much like the unresolved feelings that now crept back into his heart as he stood in the cave. Reaching the end of the corridor, his flashlight caught the glint of something metallic. There, partially hidden, was a chest, a relic of the past. It was a stark contrast to the natural beauty surrounding him. He knelt to examine it, feeling the chill of the air brush against his skin. As he cleared the debris, memories of his mentor flooded back, lessons on perseverance, the importance of honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. With the lock broken, Glenn hesitated for a moment. The chest felt heavy with the weight of secrets. He could almost hear the wind whispering through the trees outside, urging him to proceed. The air felt electric, charged with the anticipation of what lay within the chest. Would it hold answers, or merely more questions? With a deep breath, he opened it, revealing a trove of forgotten memories, old audio tapes, a portable recorder, and notebooks filled with the careful script of someone long gone. Each item seemed to pulse with significance, laden with the echoes of a life once lived. As he listened to the tapes, Glenn was transported back to a time when he believed he could do no wrong. The story of the controlled burn played out like a film in his mind. He had thought he was saving the forest, but in reality, he had flirted with disaster. The truth settled in his heart, heavy and uncomfortable, mingling with the guilt he had carried for years. The first tape began with the familiar voice of his mentor, a gravelly tone that was both comforting and unsettling. "If you're listening to this, Glenn, I hope it's because you've believed in the importance of honesty." The voice crackled, laced with weariness. "But honesty can be a heavy burden. It's not just about the trees, it's about the people who depend on them." Glenn felt a lump form in his throat. The mention of the people, the townsfolk who had trusted them, brought back memories of their faces, the concern and fear in their eyes during the aftermath of the burn. The way they had looked at him, the ranger who was supposed to protect them, haunted him. The tape continued, recounting the fateful day. "The fire spread faster than we anticipated, and it was my responsibility to contain it. But I was overconfident, and I failed. I failed the forest, and more importantly, I failed the people." Each word struck a chord deep within Glenn, reminding him of the thin line he walked as a ranger. The balance between ambition and responsibility, between progress and preservation, was a delicate dance he had yet to master. As the tape wound down, his mentor's voice grew quieter, almost reflective. "You have a choice, Glenn. You can bury the past, let it haunt you, or you can confront it. Sometimes the truth is a bitter pill, but it's one that must be swallowed." Glenn sat back against the cold stone wall, heart racing, mind racing faster. The weight of those words washed over him. He pictured the faces of the townspeople, the ones affected by that fateful day. The weight of their memories pressed down on him, a burden he could no longer ignore. He could bury the tapes, let them fade into the shadows of the cave, or he could bring them into the light, confronting the past head-on. The choice lay before him, and for the first time in a long while, Glenn felt the sting of uncertainty. Would he choose truth over comfort? Would he allow the legacy of his mentor to guide him? In that moment, the cave transformed into a sanctuary of self-discovery. The past was no longer just a series of events. It was a tapestry woven with lessons, choices, and the responsibility of being a ranger. Glenn sighed, a mixture of fear and hope swirling within him, a reflection of the storm that raged in his heart. The second tape began, this time with a sense of urgency. If you're still listening, this means you found something important. I hope you realize the significance of what I'm saying. The mistakes I made may not be the end of the story, but they could be the beginning of yours. Glenn clenched his fists, the tension rising within him. The voice continued, speaking of accountability and the need to face consequences head-on. I left for a reason, Glenn. I couldn't bear the weight of what I'd done, but I didn't want you to carry that burden too. You have to be prepared for what lies ahead. Each confession stirred something deep within him, a longing for redemption that mingled with fear. He had always been the steadfast ranger, the protector of the forest, yet here he was, facing the very essence of his past mistakes. The tapes were not just relics, they were a mirror reflecting his journey, revealing the choices he wished he could erase. And yet, the truth could not be ignored. As the last words of the tape played out, Glenn felt the gravity of his mentor's warning. The boy he once was, and the man he had become, stood at a crossroads. To embrace the truth meant risking everything he had built, a career, reputation, even friendships. But to remain silent would mean living a lie, a choice that would haunt him forever. He turned off the recorder, silence enveloping him once more, but it was a silence filled with the echoes of his past. Glenn sat back against the cold stone wall, heart racing, mind racing faster. He pictured the faces of the townspeople, the ones affected by that fateful day. The weight of their memories pressed down on him. The cave, which had felt like a place of reflection, now felt like a chamber of reckoning. Every word his mentor spoke echoed in Glenn's mind, forcing him to confront the man he had become. Would he risk everything to embrace the truth, or would he retreat into the comfortable lies he had told himself for years? After what felt like an eternity, Glenn took a deep breath and stood up, the decision simmering in his mind. He was not the same man who had walked into the cave just hours ago. He could feel the stirrings of resolve taking root within him. As he gathered the tapes and notebooks, he understood that the past, while painful, was also a guide, a way to navigate the future. With the weight of the chest now resting in his hands, Glenn made his way back through the winding passages, each step echoing the determination that had begun to swell within him. The musty air wrapped around him, mingling with the scent of damp earth, but it was the promise of the daylight ahead that pulled him forward. He felt the compass in his pocket, a steady reminder that he was not alone on this journey. Emerging from the cave, Glenn was met with the warmth of the afternoon sun. The air was fresh, carrying with it the promise of renewal. The world seemed alive, each rustle of leaves and chirp of birds a reminder that life went on. He grasped the compass, its familiar weight grounding him as he walked back toward his truck. The sunlight bathed the landscape in a golden glow, the mountains standing tall and proud against the vibrant sky. As Glenn approached his truck, he noted the familiar marks of wear and tear on its surface, each scratch and dent a testament to the miles he had traveled, both in distance and in life. He opened the door and slid into the driver's seat, the worn leather embracing him like an old friend. The weight of the tapes remained in his mind, a part of him now. He would not bury the past, but would carry it forward, ready to face the truth and share it with those who needed to hear it. As he drove down the winding road, the landscape rolled out before him, lush and vibrant, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. Each mile felt cathartic, the burdens he had carried for so long starting to lift. He could feel a sense of clarity settling in his heart, the clarity that came from confronting the truth rather than hiding from it. The radio crackled to life, a familiar country tune spilling into the truck, filling the silence with warmth. It was a song about home, about choices and the twists of fate that lead us to where we are. Glenn smiled softly, feeling lighter, more at peace than he had in years. With every note, he felt the love for his community and the land he had dedicated his life to protecting surge within him. In essence, Glenn understood that choices define us, and sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most profound growth. He glanced at the compass one last time, a smile creeping onto his face as he knew he was on the right path, guided by the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. As he drove, Glenn made a silent vow to honor his mentor's legacy by sharing the truth. He would not let fear dictate his actions. Instead, he would be the voice of accountability that his mentor had wished he could be. He would confront the past, not only for himself but for the community that had trusted him to protect their home. Arriving in town, Glenn parked the truck and took a moment to breathe in the familiar scent of pine and earth, mixed with the faint aroma of brewing coffee from the diner down the street. The sound of laughter and conversation drifted through the air, mingling with the distant hum of life moving forward. This was home, the place where he had grown, made mistakes, and learned invaluable lessons. With a newfound resolve, Glenn stepped out of the truck, each step toward the diner, a step toward confronting the truth. The doors swung open as he entered, and he was greeted by the familiar faces of the townsfolk. They looked up with warm smiles, unaware of the storm that had been brewing inside him. He returned their smiles, feeling a sense of kinship with each one. As he settled into a booth, he could feel the weight of the tapes and notebooks resting in his mind, a reminder of the conversations that awaited him. He would not shy away from the truth. He would embrace it. He was ready to tell his story, to share the lessons learned from the past, and to help the community heal from the scars that lingered from that fateful day. With every sip of his coffee, Glenn felt the warmth spread through him, a feeling of hope and renewed purpose. He was determined to make amends, to honor his mentor's legacy not just in memory, but in action. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where he would be guided not by fear, but by the lessons of the past, a pledge to protect the land and the people he cherished. As he left the diner, Glenn's heart raced with anticipation. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that danced along the streets. He could feel the echoes of the past fading, replaced by the promise of a brighter future, a future where honesty and accountability defined his path. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it would be worth it. It was time to confront the past and reclaim the legacy he had almost lost. Let me know if you would like to continue with the next block or make any adjustments. Glenn stood outside the diner, the air thick with anticipation. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden light that danced on the pavement. He took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scents of the small town, freshly brewed coffee, baked goods wafting from the bakery next door, and the earthy aroma of the forest that surrounded them. Each scent triggered a memory, a reminder of why he had dedicated his life to protecting this land and the people who called it home. With a determined stride, he pushed open the diner's door. The bell above jingled softly, and the familiar sound of laughter and chatter wrapped around him like a warm embrace. He spotted a few regulars at the counter, their faces lighting up as he entered. Glenn waved, a smile forming on his lips. He felt at home here among friends who had become family. He slid into a booth in the corner, taking a moment to collect his thoughts. The waitress, Betty, approached him with her usual friendly demeanor. "Well, if it isn't our favorite ranger, the usual," she asked, her notepad poised to take his order. "Yeah, thanks, Betty. And a piece of pie, if you have it," he replied, his stomach rumbling at the thought of her famous cherry pie. As she walked away, Glenn glanced around the diner. His heart raced as he thought about the conversations he needed to have. The tapes, the revelations they contained, had ignited a fire within him. He could no longer remain silent about the past. The truth would need to be shared, not only for his sake but for the sake of the community that had suffered because of his mentor's mistakes, and in turn, his own. After a few moments, Betty returned with his coffee and a slice of pie that looked too good to resist. He took a moment to savor the first bite, the sweet and tart filling mixing with the flaky crust. It was a small comfort, a taste of home, but it also reminded him of the weight he carried. Glenn set the fork down, staring into his coffee as he recalled the audio tapes. Each word from his mentor echoed in his mind, urging him to confront the past. The first tape had recounted the devastating day of the controlled burn, detailing how things had spiraled out of control. Glenn had heard the regret in his mentor's voice, but now he understood that the burden of that regret had been passed on to him. As the diner's chatter swirled around him, Glenn's thoughts turned to the townspeople. They had trusted him, depended on him to protect their home, and yet he had failed them. He could picture their faces, the fear and confusion after the fire, the uncertainty of what lay ahead. That day had changed everything. Their lives had been irrevocably altered, and now it was time to face the consequences. The door swung open, and Glenn looked up to see several familiar faces enter the diner. It was the town council, members who had been instrumental in shaping the community's direction. They spotted him and made their way over, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Glenn, good to see you," said Jack, the mayor, his handshake firm. "We were just discussing the upcoming community meeting, and here you are. We could use your insights." Glenn nodded, forcing a smile as the weight of the moment settled upon him. "Thanks, Jack. I'd like to talk to everyone about something important, actually." The council members exchanged glances, their interest piqued. They settled into the booth across from him, their expressions shifting from casual conversation to attentive concern. "Is everything all right?" asked Sarah, the council secretary, her brow furrowing slightly. Glenn took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I found something in the cave today, tapes from my mentor. They're not just recordings, they're a part of our history, and they contain revelations that I think we need to address together." The room fell silent, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. He could see the questions forming in their eyes, the worry overriding their initial curiosity. "What kind of revelations?" Jack prompted, leaning forward. Glenn recounted the details of the tapes, the controlled burn, the mistakes made, the consequences that followed. He shared how the fire had spread and how his mentor had borne the brunt of the blame. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but in hindsight, I realize how reckless we were," he confessed, the weight of the truth pressing heavily on his chest. As he spoke, he could feel the tension rise in the booth. The council members exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from concern to understanding. The room seemed to breathe as they absorbed the gravity of his words. "I know we've all tried to move on from that day," Glenn continued, "but I believe that by acknowledging the truth, we can finally begin to heal as a community. We need to have an open dialogue about what happened and how it impacted us all." Jack furrowed his brow, processing the information. "Glenn, that's a heavy revelation. Are you suggesting we revisit the past, the decisions that led us here?" "Yes," Glenn replied, his voice steady. "I believe we owe it to ourselves and to those who were affected to confront the reality of what transpired. The truth has a way of setting us free, and maybe it will also help us make better choices in the future." The diner filled with a hushed silence as the council members contemplated his words. Glenn could feel the weight of their collective history pressing down on them. This was a pivotal moment, one that could forge a new path for their community. Sarah broke the silence, her voice thoughtful. "You're right, Glenn. We've never truly addressed the aftermath of the fire. Perhaps it's time we had a community meeting, opened the floor for discussion, and allowed everyone to share their experiences. It could be cathartic." "I agree," Jack added, his tone resolute. "We owe it to our town to face the past. If we can bring everyone together and create a space for honesty, maybe we can finally move forward." Glenn nodded, feeling a surge of hope. He had been worried about their reaction, but now he sensed a willingness to confront the truth. "I want to be clear. I'm not asking for blame or punishment. I just think we need to acknowledge the impact of our choices and learn from them." The council members seemed to rally around the idea, their expressions shifting to determination. They began brainstorming ways to reach out to the community, ideas for the meeting swirling around the booth like a whirlwind. As they collaborated, Glenn felt a sense of camaraderie building. They were no longer just individuals with their own agendas. They were a community united in a shared purpose. After discussing logistics, they settled on a date for the community meeting, excited chatter filling the air. Glenn took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment lift. This was the beginning of something significant, a chance to reclaim the narrative of their past. As the council members left to spread the word about the meeting, Glenn remained at the booth, a sense of relief washing over him. He took a moment to sip his coffee, the warmth grounding him. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, and that facing the truth often came with discomfort. But he felt a flicker of hope, a spark ignited by the possibility of healing and growth. In the following days, Glenn prepared for the meeting, spending hours reflecting on the tapes and what they meant for his community. He revisited the stories of his mentor, the lessons learned from the mistakes made, and the importance of accountability. The weight of the past was heavy, but he felt ready to face it. On the day of the meeting, the community center buzzed with energy as townspeople filtered in. Glenn stood at the front, anxiously adjusting the microphone. The room filled with familiar faces, neighbors, friends, and families who had all been impacted by the fire. As the last few people took their seats, Glenn took a deep breath and began. Thank you all for coming today. I know this is a difficult topic for many of us, but it's one we cannot ignore any longer. We've all felt the effects of the fire, and it's time we talk about it openly. He recounted the events surrounding the controlled burn, sharing his perspective as both a ranger and a member of the community. As he spoke, he watched the faces in the crowd shift from curiosity to concern, and finally to understanding. He could feel the room shift, a collective recognition of the pain they had all endured. I've listened to tapes from my mentor, and they revealed not only his regrets, but also the importance of honesty in facing the truth, Glenn continued. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it and create a future built on transparency and trust. As he opened the floor for discussion, Glenn was met with a mix of emotions. Some expressed anger, others sorrow, while many shared their own stories of loss. It was a cathartic experience, allowing the community to voice their pain and reflect on the impact of decisions made. Throughout the evening, Glenn listened intently, offering support and acknowledging the weight of their experiences. He felt a sense of unity building in the room, an understanding that they were all connected through their shared history. As the meeting drew to a close, Glenn looked out at the faces before him, some teary-eyed, others resolute. I want to thank each of you for your courage in sharing tonight. It's through these conversations that we begin to heal. Together, we can ensure that the mistakes of the past don't define our future. A wave of applause erupted, and Glenn felt a swell of gratitude. He had feared the community might resist facing the truth, but instead they had embraced it. The journey was far from over, but tonight marked a significant step forward. As the townsfolk began to filter out of the community center, Glenn lingered, talking to those who remained. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to honoring his mentor's legacy by fostering a culture of honesty and accountability. In the days that followed, Glenn became a catalyst for change in the community. He organized additional meetings, focused on rebuilding trust and fostering open dialogue. The tapes his mentor had left behind had sparked a movement, a recognition that the past could inform their future, shaping a community that was resilient and united. As he walked through the town, Glenn felt lighter, as if the weight of the past was being lifted. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them with the courage he had found within himself. The Ozarks stood tall around him, a reminder that nature, much like humanity, could heal and grow from adversity. With each step he took, Glenn felt a renewed connection to the land, to the people, and to the legacy he was helping to create. The journey to reclaim the truth had begun, and Glenn was determined to see it through, one conversation, one connection, one step at a time. And as he looked up at the sky, the sun breaking through the clouds, he felt a flicker of hope that had been absent for far too long. As the days turned into weeks, Glenn and the community continued to work together, building a foundation based on transparency and accountability. The meetings became a platform for not only discussing the past, but also envisioning a brighter future. Glenn took solace in knowing that they were united, determined to honor the lessons learned and the mistakes made. Through it all, Glenn found strength in the stories shared by his neighbors. They spoke of their hopes, dreams, and the desire to create a legacy for the next generation. Each voice became a thread in the tapestry of their community, weaving a narrative that was rich with resilience and purpose. In this journey of healing, Glenn discovered that truth was not only liberating, but also transformative. The community was beginning to embrace its imperfections, understanding that it was through vulnerability that they could truly connect and grow. With each passing day, Glenn felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just a ranger. He was a beacon of hope for his community, a reminder that together they could navigate the complexities of their shared history. As he stood on the edge of the forest, gazing out at the land he loved, Glenn felt a surge of gratitude. The Ozarks, with all its beauty and challenges, had shaped him into the man he was today. He was ready to step into the future with courage, wisdom, and a deep commitment to honoring the past. The path ahead would undoubtedly be filled with trials, but Glenn was prepared to face them, guided by the lessons learned and the bonds forged within the community. He understood now that facing the truth was not a solitary journey. It was a collective effort that required compassion, understanding, and a willingness to embrace the complexities of life. With a heart full of hope, Glenn took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill his lungs. He was ready for whatever lay ahead, confident that together they could build a future that honored their past while paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with the next block, or if you have any adjustments. The community meeting had transformed Glenn's relationship with the townsfolk, sparking a resurgence of hope and unity. As days turned into weeks, he engaged in conversations that brought the past into the light. Each encounter felt like a small victory, a step closer to healing. Yet, beneath the surface of this collective progress, Glenn grappled with the revelations of the tapes. The weight of his mentor's warnings echoed in his mind, reminding him that the truth could be a double-edged sword. While there was relief in acknowledging their past, there was also a looming question. How would this newfound honesty impact his role as a ranger and the trust he had built with the community? One crisp autumn evening, Glenn found himself sitting on his porch, the cool breeze rustling the leaves of the towering oak trees that shaded his yard. He watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. It was a peaceful scene, yet his mind was troubled. He had received news that the county planned to conduct a controlled burn in an area neighboring the town, a decision that stirred a myriad of emotions within him. Memories of the past flooded his thoughts. The fire that had spiraled out of control, the devastation it had wrought on the community, and the burden of guilt that had weighed heavily on his shoulders for years. Glenn leaned back in his chair, the wood creaking under his weight as he contemplated the implications of the upcoming burn. The decision had been made without the community's input, a stark reminder of the mistakes that had led to distrust in the past. He had fought hard to create a space for open dialogue, yet here was a situation that could unravel the progress they had made. Finally, he decided he would attend the next town meeting and voice his concerns, not just for himself, but for the community that had come to trust him again. They had fought together to reclaim their narrative. Now it was time to ensure that their voices were heard in decisions that directly impacted their lives. The following evening, the community gathered once more at the local center. The room buzzed with chatter, a mingling of excitement and anxiety. Glenn arrived early, taking a seat near the front, his heart pounding. He watched as faces filled with determination and hope entered the room, friends and neighbors ready to engage in discussions that mattered. The mayor began the meeting, explaining the upcoming burn as a necessary step for forest management. While the information was valid, Glenn felt a knot form in his stomach. As discussions unfolded, he noted mixed reactions from the crowd. Some supported the burn, trusting the experts, while others voiced concerns reminiscent of the past. Glenn felt a sense of urgency build within him. When the time came for public comments, he stood, heart racing. "I appreciate the hard work that's gone into planning this controlled burn," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "But I can't help but remember the last time we attempted something like this. It was a disaster, and it left scars on our community that we're still healing from." The room fell silent, all eyes on him. He could see the faces of those who had been affected by the fire, their expressions a mix of support and apprehension. "I believe in the importance of responsible land management," he continued, gesturing to the council members. "But we need to prioritize open communication and community involvement in decisions that affect us all. We've worked hard to rebuild trust, and I worry that moving forward without thorough discussion could undo that progress." As he spoke, he felt a swell of support from the crowd. A few people nodded in agreement while others whispered among themselves. The atmosphere shifted, tension transforming into a shared understanding of the weight of Glenn's words. "I'm asking for a pause in this decision," Glenn concluded, "so we can come together as a community and discuss our concerns. Let's ensure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. We owe it to everyone who has been affected and to the land we cherish." Jack, the mayor, nodded, considering Glenn's request. "I think it's important that we hear everyone's voice, Glenn. Perhaps we can hold a special meeting dedicated to addressing these concerns before moving forward with the burn." Glenn felt a surge of hope as they were on the verge of making a pivotal decision. The council's willingness to engage and listen was encouraging. The meeting ended with renewed energy, discussions sparked by the prospect of addressing the community's concerns. Glenn felt a sense of unity in the room, a reminder that they were all in this together. In the days that followed, the special meeting was scheduled, and Glenn worked alongside the council to prepare. Flyers were distributed, and word spread quickly throughout the town. Everyone was encouraged to participate, to voice their concerns, and to contribute to the discussion on responsible land management. As the community center filled with familiar faces, Glenn felt a swell of pride. The meeting began, and he found his voice again, guiding the discussion and encouraging others to share their thoughts. It was a powerful moment, a testament to their collective strength. People spoke passionately about their love for the land, their desire to protect it, and the need for transparency in decision-making. The conversations flowed, weaving together stories of loss, resilience, and hope. Glenn felt a renewed sense of purpose as he listened to his neighbors. As the meeting drew to a close, a sense of consensus emerged. The community agreed on the necessity of conducting further assessments to explore alternatives to the controlled burn. Glenn felt a surge of relief wash over him, knowing they were taking a proactive approach, one that prioritized both the land and the people who depended on it. Stepping outside into the cool evening air, Glenn felt the weight of the past lift just a little more. While the journey ahead would be challenging, they had taken significant steps toward healing, together. He understood now that the truth had paved the way for accountability, and he was ready to continue working with his community to ensure their voices were heard. Days turned into weeks, and Glenn continued to engage with the community, nurturing the conversations sparked in those meetings. He recognized that they were no longer just survivors of a past disaster, they were advocates for their community's future. One afternoon, as he walked through the woods, Glenn marveled at the beauty that surrounded him. The leaves crunched beneath his feet, the sound of a nearby stream bubbling over the rocks. Each step felt like a reminder of the connection he shared with the land and the people who cared for it. As he made his way back home, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape. Glenn felt a powerful sense of peace wash over him. He was no longer just a ranger. He was a steward of the land, a voice for the community and a bridge connecting the past with the future. In the heart of the Ozarks, Glenn continued his journey, one step at a time, guided by the lessons learned and a commitment to honor the truth. He knew that together they would navigate the complexities of their shared history, embracing the challenges ahead with courage and resilience. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next block or if you need any adjustments. The sun dipped low on the horizon as Glenn stood on his porch, the cool evening air wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. The successful meeting from the night before still resonated within him, filling him with a sense of accomplishment and hope. The community had come together, united in their determination to reclaim their narrative. They had faced their fears and spoken their truths, and Glenn felt a renewed sense of purpose as he reflected on the journey that lay ahead. With the decision made to delay the controlled burn until further community consultation, Glenn understood that they were not just postponing a plan, they were forging a new path built on collaboration and transparency. As a ranger, he had always felt a sense of duty to protect the land, but now that duty extended beyond the trees and rivers. It encompassed the people who depended on those natural resources as well. The next morning, Glenn awoke early, the sun streaming through his kitchen window. He brewed a pot of coffee, letting the familiar aroma fill the space. As he sipped from his favorite mug, he pondered the upcoming community workshops he had proposed during the meeting. They would serve as a platform for open dialogue and education about forest management, fire safety, and the ecological importance of controlled burns. Glenn wanted to ensure that everyone had the opportunity to become informed participants in the conversation. After breakfast, he grabbed his notebook and headed out to the community center to start planning the workshops. The center buzzed with activity as residents filtered in and out, their energy palpable. Glenn greeted everyone with a smile, exchanging encouraging words with those who had attended the meeting. It felt good to see the community engaged, ready to learn and contribute. As Glenn entered the meeting room, he found a group of familiar faces seated around the table. The mayor and several council members were gathered, discussing logistics for the workshops. "Glad to see you, Glenn," the mayor said, motioning for him to join them. "We've been brainstorming ideas for how to best approach these workshops, and we'd love your input." Glenn took a seat, excitement bubbling within him. "Thank you for including me. I think it's important that we structure the workshops around community input. We should start by addressing the concerns that were raised during the last meeting, and then delve into educational topics that empower everyone to make informed decisions." The council members nodded in agreement, and Glenn felt a sense of camaraderie in the room. They were working toward a common goal, creating a community that valued both the land and the voices of its residents. "Perhaps we could invite local experts to speak on fire ecology," suggested Sarah, the council secretary. "That way, we can educate everyone on the role of controlled burns in maintaining healthy forests." "Absolutely," Glenn replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "And we should also have a session dedicated to discussing the emotional impact of the past fire. It's important for people to share their stories and to know they're not alone in their feelings." The group spent the next hour brainstorming ideas for the workshop series, and the atmosphere was charged with enthusiasm. Glenn felt invigorated as they laid the groundwork for a collaborative approach that would allow the community to take ownership of their narrative. Once the meeting concluded, Glenn left the community center with a sense of purpose. He made his way through town, taking note of the vibrant colors adorning the trees as autumn progressed. The beauty of the changing season reminded him of the process of growth, how it often required change and discomfort before blossoming into something remarkable. In the days that followed, Glenn worked tirelessly to organize the workshops. He reached out to local experts, securing speakers who could address various topics, from fire management to the emotional toll of natural disasters. He created flyers to distribute around town, ensuring that everyone had the opportunity to participate. It was rewarding work, a chance to cultivate a sense of belonging and empowerment within the community. As the date of the first workshop approached, Glenn felt a mix of excitement and nerves. He remembered the fear and uncertainty that had filled the air during the previous fire. He wanted to ensure that this time the community would feel supported and informed. He hoped that these workshops would not only educate, but also foster connections among residents, helping them to heal together. On the day of the workshop, the community center was buzzing with energy. Residents trickled in, excited chatter filling the space. Glenn set up a welcome table where attendees could sign in and grab informational brochures about the topics that would be covered. He welcomed the crowd, feeling a swell of pride as he looked out at the familiar faces. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady. "We're here to engage in open dialogue about the challenges we face and how we can work together to ensure a safe and healthy future for our community and our land." The first speaker took the stage, a local ecologist who discussed the benefits of controlled burns in maintaining healthy ecosystems. Glenn watched as the community absorbed the information, nodding thoughtfully. The speaker encouraged questions, inviting participants to share their thoughts and concerns. As the workshop progressed, Glenn noticed a shift in the atmosphere. People were becoming increasingly engaged, asking questions and sharing their own experiences. The discussions flowed seamlessly, and Glenn felt a sense of relief wash over him. This was what he had hoped for, a space where everyone felt valued and heard. During a break, Glenn mingled with attendees, listening to their thoughts about the workshop. Clara approached him, her eyes bright with gratitude. "I can't thank you enough for organizing this, Glenn. It feels good to be able to talk about what happened and to learn how we can prevent it in the future." Glenn smiled, feeling a surge of warmth. "Thank you for coming, Clara. Your voice is important and it helps us all to heal." As the workshop continued, Glenn realized that the community was forging a new understanding of their shared history. They were no longer just a group of individuals affected by a past disaster. They were a collective force, united in their determination to protect their land and each other. After the final speaker wrapped up, Glenn encouraged everyone to share their thoughts. One by one, people stood to express their appreciation for the opportunity to come together and learn. Stories of loss and resilience poured forth, intermingled with expressions of hope for the future. Glenn felt overwhelmed with emotion as he listened to the shared experiences. It was a cathartic moment, a reminder that they were all intertwined in this journey. He knew that healing was not just about addressing the scars of the past, it was about building connections that would sustain them moving forward. As the workshop came to a close, Glenn looked out at the crowd, gratitude swelling in his heart. "Thank you all for being here today and for sharing your stories and insights. We are stronger together, and I'm hopeful that we can continue this dialogue as we work toward a safe and healthy future for our community." As people began to file out of the community center, Glenn felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. They had taken a significant step forward, embracing their history while forging a path grounded in collaboration and understanding. Walking home, Glenn reflected on the workshops and the connections that had formed. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to continue advocating for the well-being of both the land and the people. Each conversation, each shared story, had become a thread in the tapestry of their community, woven together by resilience and hope. In the heart of the Ozarks, Glenn embraced his role as a ranger, a protector of both the land and the people. With each new day, he vowed to honor the truth, the connections forged through adversity, and the enduring spirit of those who called this place home. This journey was far from over, but Glenn felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would navigate the complexities of their shared history, embracing the lessons learned and the bonds created along the way. Let me know if you'd like to proceed with the next block or if you need any adjustments. The leaves had turned to brilliant shades of amber and crimson, painting the Ozarks in a dazzling display of autumn colors. Glenn stood at the edge of the forest, looking out over the landscape that had become so familiar to him. He felt a deep connection to the land, one that had only grown stronger through the challenges they had faced as a community. The workshops had become a resounding success, fostering a newfound spirit of collaboration and understanding among the townsfolk. People were coming together, not just to learn about forest management and fire safety, but to share their experiences and support one another. Glenn had seen friendships rekindle and new bonds form, each conversation weaving them tighter into a resilient tapestry of hope. But even amidst this optimism, Glenn couldn't shake a lingering worry. While the community was healing, he knew that the scars of the past could resurface, especially as the weather began to shift, bringing with it the dry, crisp air of late autumn. He understood that the risk of fire was still a reality, one that required vigilance and respect. With the community's trust growing, Glenn decided it was time to revisit the site of the previous fire. He wanted to show the townsfolk how nature could heal and how their collective efforts could foster a renewed understanding of their environment. It would be a moment of reflection, a chance to honor the past while looking toward the future. On the day of the visit, he gathered a small group of volunteers, including Clara and a few other community members who had actively participated in the workshops. As they walked together through the forest, Glenn shared stories of what had happened during the fire, what they had learned since, and how nature had slowly started to reclaim its space. "Look here," Glenn pointed as they reached a clearing, the once charred earth now dotted with new green shoots and budding saplings. "It may seem barren, but this is nature's way of healing. The fire cleared out the underbrush, and now the new growth has a chance to thrive." Clara knelt down to examine the small plants, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's incredible to see this," she said, her voice filled with awe. "I never thought I'd be able to look at this place and see anything other than destruction." Glenn smiled, grateful for the opportunity to share this moment with her. "That's the beauty of nature. It has an incredible resilience, just like us." As they continued their walk, they reached a small stream that wound its way through the forest, a gentle trickle of water that sparkled in the sunlight. Glenn pointed out the animals returning to the area, insects buzzing, birds flitting through the branches, and even a deer peeking curiously from behind a tree. "This stream is a lifeline for the forest," Glenn explained. "It supports the wildlife and brings balance to the ecosystem. We need to remember how interconnected everything is. When we take care of the land, it takes care of us in return." The group listened intently, engaged in the natural beauty surrounding them. They felt the weight of their shared history, but this time it was accompanied by a sense of hope and renewal. As they walked, Glenn encouraged everyone to share their thoughts and reflections. Each story told was a stitch in the fabric of their collective healing. "After the fire I felt so lost," Clara admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But now, seeing how life is coming back here, it feels like a reminder that we can rebuild and move forward too." Glenn nodded, touched by her vulnerability. "You're absolutely right. Healing takes time, and it's okay to feel that sense of loss. But together, we can create something beautiful from it." As the afternoon wore on, they arrived at an overlook that provided a sweeping view of the valley below. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the landscape. It was a breathtaking sight, one that made Glenn's heart swell with pride and gratitude for the land he had devoted his life to protecting. "Let's take a moment to soak this in," he suggested, gesturing for the group to gather around. They stood in silence, taking in the beauty of their surroundings, the vibrant colors of the trees, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant sound of water flowing. In that moment, Glenn felt a profound sense of connection, not just to the land, but to the people standing beside him. They were all part of this narrative, woven together by their shared experiences and resilience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Glenn turned to the group, his voice steady. "We've come a long way together, but there will always be challenges ahead. Let's promise to continue supporting one another, to keep the lines of communication open, and to protect this land that sustains us." The group nodded, a collective understanding passing between them. They had weathered storms together, and now they stood united, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they made their way back through the forest, Glenn felt the weight of the world lifting from his shoulders. They had taken a powerful step forward by acknowledging their history while cultivating a hopeful future. Later that evening, as Glenn sat on his porch reflecting on the day, he felt a deep sense of peace. The stars twinkled above him, and the cool breeze whispered through the trees. He understood that healing was a journey, one that would require patience and perseverance, but he was ready for it. In the heart of the Ozarks, Glenn continued to embrace his role not just as a ranger, but as a steward of both the land and the community. Together, they would navigate the complexities of their shared history, honoring the past while forging a path filled with hope and resilience. And as the night settled in, Glenn knew that they were stronger together, bound by a commitment to protect their home, their stories, and each other. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next block, or if you need any adjustments. As autumn settled into the Ozarks, Glenn found himself reflecting on the journey the community had undertaken. The workshops had sparked a spirit of collaboration and understanding among the townsfolk. Friendships had rekindled, and new bonds formed as they shared experiences and supported one another in the wake of past tragedies. Yet, even amidst this optimism, Glenn sensed an undercurrent of apprehension. The dry, crisp air of late autumn reminded him that the risk of fire still loomed. With community trust growing, Glenn decided it was time to address these lingering fears head-on. While walking through town one evening, he noticed a gathering at the park. Curious, Glenn approached and found several community members discussing winter preparations, the topic inevitably shifting to the fear of another disaster. Sensing an opportunity, he stepped closer to join the conversation. "Mind if I join you all?" he asked, and Clara greeted him with a warm smile. "We were just talking about how to keep our community safe this winter," she said. Glenn nodded, grateful for the open dialogue. "It's important we take these concerns seriously. As we prepare for winter, let's remember the lessons we've learned. We've built a foundation of trust, and it's vital we continue to communicate and support one another." A voice from the back broke the silence. "What do you suggest we do?" Glenn felt the weight of their uncertainty. "Let's organize a community-wide safety plan. We can gather information on fire safety and conduct risk assessments for the winter. By working together, we ensure everyone feels secure." Clara's eyes lit up. "We could hold a community event where everyone can bring their ideas and concerns. It would help us build a stronger safety network." Eagerly, Glenn and the group began to discuss logistics. Excitement filled the air as they planned the event, realizing that by taking proactive steps, they could transform their fears into action. Later that night, Glenn felt a renewed sense of purpose. He sat on his porch under the stars, contemplating the importance of this gathering. It was more than just about safety. It was about reinforcing the bonds that had grown stronger in the wake of adversity. In the days leading up to the event, Glenn worked diligently to engage the community. He hung flyers, spoke to residents, and rallied enthusiasm. When the night of the gathering arrived, the community center buzzed with energy, filled with neighbors, friends, and families eager to share their thoughts. As Glenn looked out at the crowd, he felt pride swell within him. He led discussions that encouraged participation, allowing participants to voice their concerns and suggestions. The room was alive with conversation. Ideas flowed freely as they crafted a comprehensive plan together. As the evening wound down, Glenn stood before the group, gratitude filling his heart. "Tonight, we've proven that we are stronger together. We aren't just individuals, we are a community ready to face any challenges ahead. Let's carry this spirit forward and continue to support one another." The applause that followed was a powerful affirmation of their unity. They had transformed fear into action, a testament to their resilience. Glenn stepped outside into the cool night air, breathing in deeply, feeling hopeful. The stars twinkled overhead, a reminder that amidst challenges, there was always a light guiding them toward a brighter future. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next block, or if you need any adjustments.